My name is Lucy Ortega, and my PowerPoint today is about genetics. I am in the biology class of 1408 by Mr. Herrera, and I hope you enjoy this presentation. We're going to be starting off with the first question, and that is, what are genetics? According to the dictionary, the definition of genetics is the study of hereditary and the variation of inherited characteristics. Every single living organism, whether it's a human, an animal, a plant, we all have a very unique genetic code. And our parents are responsible for this. Each parent contributes different traits, then that makes up our DNA, which is pictured on the side here below. Our DNA lives inside our cells and holds every genetic makeup code we need to make us us. Next, we're going to be talking about DNA, and DNA is found within our cell's nucleus. This is a little structure that holds all the information and all the codes of our traits. So the cell, when it comes down to DNA duplication and splitting up of the DNA strand, the cell is able to organize it better, to read it better, and to process everything according to what they are. And each code is composed of 3 different bases, and the bases are adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. And we see in the example photo in the bottom of a sample DNA, and each base being paired up with a color. And within the DNA sample, we see the mix and match pairings of a base with another base. And this is a great example to show what's going inside our cells. DNA is used for a variety of things. We see it being used in criminal cases. We see it being used to find out our health. When you go into a doctor's office, it always asks, do you have a family history of cancer? Do you have a family history of diabetes? Because our DNA helps determine what can possibly happen to us and what can we do to become better. Next, we're going to be talking about traits. Traits are inherited from your parents. Every single trait about you is inherited, whether it's physical, mental, or health-wise. So when we can take a look at physical genes, and this is your eye color, your skin color, your hair color. Do you have a short nose? Do you have a round nose? Are you tall? Are you small? Different stuff like that. And then for mental traits, we can see bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, autism. And for health traits, we can see, does obesity run in your family? Does cancer run in your family? Does diabetes run in your family? And so many more. And we can look to the right. There's a photo that shows a good example of how a gene can be inherited. And this photo talks about color blindness. So we can look at the mom figure. She's the one on the top that's pink. It says she has a defective gene in one of her X chromosomes. And then we can look at the dad. He has an X and Y chromosome, but no defective gene. And in the bottom, we see that they have 4 children. They have 2 girls and 2 boys. One girl has an XX chromosome with no defective gene, and she is not colorblind. The second girl has an XX chromosome with a defective gene, and she still is not colorblind. And then we take a look at the 2 boys, both of them having XY chromosome, but one carries a defective gene, and he is colorblind. So we know for a fact that colorblindness is more seen in males rather than females, but this doesn't erase the fact that they still carry 2 of them still carry the defective gene, and this is possible to be spread to their children and to take a leap of generation and be spread to their children, and so on and so on. Next, we're going to be looking at mutations within the DNA. And we kind of got a glimpse of this in the first slide where it talked about the mother and the 2 children with a defective gene. That was a mutation within their own DNA. There's hereditary mutations and acquired mutations. We're going to take the first look at hereditary mutations. This mutation is there from birth till death. They are passed down from the parents to the offspring. The mutation cells are located within the egg and sperm cells of the parents and are located in every single cell within the organism. So every mutation is in every single cell. Now we're going to be looking at acquired mutations, and unlike hereditary, they can happen at any point of a person's life. Hereditary cells are also only located in certain cells of the body. And different factors that can contribute to acquired mutations are ones like environmental factors, UV radiation, chemical exposure, or if a DNA copy from cell division requires an error. And in the photo right here on this slide, we see this DNA strand and then a DNA strand after the DNA copy. We can see the middle broken up and slanted, and that is a mutation within that DNA. Now we're going to be talking about adaptations. An adaptation is first and foremost a mutation, but unlike others, these have the purpose in benefiting an organism. Just like hereditary mutations, an adaptation is passed down as well, and then ultimately will become a typical trait to whatever organism species acquires it. There are two different kinds of adaptations: structural adaptation and behavioral adaptations. Structural adaptations are physical, and biological adaptations. So I've been given the example of a camel. So we see the camel has these long eyelashes to protect sand from going in within his eyes. We see that they have large eyebrows to protect it from the sun. We see the humps on their back that help with the wind. And so many more other animals have it. We can see it within different kind of fish. Their scales change colors to help protect it from predators. We see polar bears' skin and color help it blend in when hunting as well. We see so many different structural adaptations. And now we're going to take a look at behavioral adaptations. And these are not really seen within the organism's body, but in the way they behave, hence behavioral adaptations. And these can be from mating and migrating patterns. And I gave the example of sharks. I love watching Shark Week, and something that I learned from there is that every single time they mate, they go back to the same spot. No matter if it's across the ocean, they travel back to have their pups there. They grow there, and then their pups, once they grow and have babies, they go back to the same location they were born and do it all over again. So it's very fascinating, very awesome to know. And those are the kind of adaptations that an organism can acquire. Now we're going to be talking about Punnett squares, and Punnett squares is a simple and easy way to finding the mathematical probabilities of certain traits that are inherited. So for this, we need one genotype from one parent and another genotype for another parent regarding a specific trait. Punnett squares can be used to determine different factors like earlobe attachment, hair color, curly hair, having autism inherited, bipolar disorder inherited. It basically determines the probability of each and every trait a person has. We look at dominant and recessive alleles, which determine the genotype. Dominant is a capital letter, and recessive is a lowercase letter. Homozygous genotypes is when you have the same allele twice, and heterozygous is when you have a pairing of either a recessive or a dominant allele. A dominant and a recessive allele paired together is still going to be turning out to be dominant, since it is a bigger trait. And here in the Punnett square that we have is an example of a yellow banana and a green banana. We see that one parent, which is on the top, has two recessive alleles for a green banana. And on the side, we see a parent has a heterozygous genotype of a big Y and little y, which gives it the yellow color. And now by cross multiplying them, we see that they have a 50-50 chance of either having a yellow banana as the offspring or a green banana of the offspring. Now we're going to be moving on to evolution, and this is a change in the characteristics of a species over several generations and relies on the process of natural selection. According to evolution, all species are somewhat connected, but due to the changes that have happened over so many years, which is why we have a variety of species. We saw this in Charles Darwin's findings of the finches. He saw that each finch had a different characteristic, but they still had basically the same DNA, and that dated back to their ancestors or their original type of bird. We saw that one bird had one long beak, which fit his environment of having little nuts that were harder to pick up and that were bigger. And then we saw another bird who had a shorter beak that helped best fit his environment, which was getting shorter beaked little nuts that were easier to open. And each bird evolved to best fit their environment, which we'll go on to talk about natural selection. But that's the basis of evolution, transforming yourself to fit your needs. We see evolution in so many species around the world. Ape creatures to humans is the best well-known evolution. We talk about this all the time, how we evolved from apes, how we're closely related to apes in a sense. And in the diagram we see here, the monkey walking on all fours, and then slowly starting to walk like how humans do today. So next we're going to be talking about natural selection, and this is survival of the fittest. Natural selection goes hand in hand with evolution. Each species have gone through evolution, and the individuals in a species that haven't attained the adaptation needed to survive in their environment will die. The individuals in each species that survive pass down the surviving traits. We can take a look at the picture right here, and on the left side we see two giraffes with long necks and one giraffe with a short neck. And while we take a look to the right, we see the two giraffes with long necks eating the leaves on the trees and having fun, while the giraffe with the short neck is dead on the ground. And why is that? Because he didn't adapt and evolve to fit his environment's needs. For natural selection, you need to evolve to fit your environment, your food needs, your social needs, etc. And without adapting and changing and passing on these traits needed to survive, the species will eventually die. So this is a big topic, DNA involvement in cancer. This goes hand in hand with inherited traits and with mutations. Just like how a drop of DNA can help find a criminal, a drop of DNA can help see if you carry cancer mutations. Testing of blood can help identify in a woman if they carry the BRCA gene. The BRCA gene is an indicator that one is susceptible to breast or ovarian cancer. 5 to 10% of cancer is said to be connected to inherited gene mutations. Family history of cancer can be passed down to children, which is why doing regular checkups is essential, not just for people who are connected to cancer, but for anyone. It is so great how science has evolved to let one drop of blood help to see if you carry any cancer genes to help protect you and help you take the stages you need to take to prevent this from happening to you or your loved ones. Now we're going to be talking about a fun little subject, DNA forensics. As I mentioned before in an earlier slide, DNA has a huge role in helping crime and helping find perpetrators of different crimes like murders and rapes and etc. A single drop of blood can reveal the age, height, and look of a person. DNA advancements have allowed cold cases that are many years old to be solved. And in this photo right here, we can see how DNA works within the crime system. So we have suspect A and suspect B, and the blood obtained from the crime scene. And the blood obtained shows it has 12 and 16 repeats. Suspect A has 12 and 12 repeats, and suspect suspect B has 12 and 16 repeats. So suspect B and the blood in the crime scene pair up perfectly, unlike suspect A, which is missing 4 more repeats in his second strand. So the use of DNA is helpful when it comes to this because it allows us to look deeper than just who did this, or we weren't there, we aren't able to find this. It's able to get a just tiny drop of blood and obtain all this kind of information that we wouldn't normally have to solve crimes and to figure out what actually happened in cases like this. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Herrera, and to anyone else who might have watched this. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much again.